Dr. Jazz. Dr. Jazz.
Away. During the time I was teaching at Berkeley in Boston, he had just finished being a student at Berkeley and was still hanging around Boston. He was just kind of hovering there before, indecisively, kind of nervously contemplating moving to New York City. So I caught him just at that time and knew right away that he was a major player and I knew also that I wanted to play with him over years rather than just days, and that slowly evolved. I mean, with the trio with Adam Nussbaum, the drum,
I love that.
was formed in 1980, and that went for a while. And then there was a period where we did other projects and where I produced a bunch of his recordings. And then there was the trio with Bill Stewart that endured for quite a while, and we've had a long and abiding friendship. I mean, we still talk on the phone a lot. And,
that's beautiful. Yeah,
it's my buddy.
Yeah, also musically, like, how did he ask you? Remember to join the trio? Like, how was the story there? Like, he was just forming a band, or?
Yeah, I don't remember precisely what the conversation was, but we played in Boston together, and then in fact Gary Burton hired him.
Oh yeah,
and the band was Burton and myself and John and Joe LaBarbera was at that time the West Coast guy.
Yeah.
Nice band. So John and I were kind of cementing a relationship during these years in the mid-1970s. And then he did move to New York and stopped playing with Gary Burton, and we stopped playing together. And in 1980, he called me on the phone and said, I'd like, do you want to plan, I want to start a trio, would you be in it? And I said yes without hesitation. And he was living at that time at a musicians cooperative building called Westbeth. Gil Evans was also living there, and Billy Harper. It was a famous and infamous scene. And I went down to the basement in Westbeth with John and Adam Nussbaum and rehearsed, and it felt great immediately. And John was very enthused about it and started writing a repertoire for the band, and we started plotting touring and clubs in New York who would be willing to hire us and all of that stuff. And actually made a go of that band for 2 or 3 years, and did quite a lot of touring. Again, mostly in Europe.
Yeah, sure.
Occasionally in the United States, but only occasionally, and traveling in a van on the Autobahn, endlessly on the Autobahn, and the same circuit over and over again. But it was a very accepting environment we were in, a very comfortable environment. We were encouraged by the public we found in the circuit of small clubs, and that it was a circuit that couldn't exist in the United States, I think, because in Europe the clubs were subsidized, either directly or indirectly, and in the United States they were forced to rely on what they made at the door, what the price of admission brought to club. So of course they had to go for the music that had the most immediate and remunerative commercial appeal.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes in the United States. Always has,
Yeah.
Something to do with capitalism, I believe.
I would say so too. Steve, I just want to ask you also this, I have so many questions, but I don't want to take too much of your time. So, but I just wanted to ask you, you've been playing with John Luck now for 40 years, 43 years. And with Carla, you have a trio with Andy for 30 years, probably. Yeah. Or how do you keep...
Yeah, 30 years.
In a way, I've done this talk also with Andy, and I love his playing. And, he was so happy when we spoke about you guys. And but I wanted to ask you, how do you keep the music fresh in your eyes, playing with the same people it has, for 40 years? Is it the compositions changing or changing sometimes? How do you maintain it fresh for you as a player and as a composer?
Yeah, well, I do think that the compositions play a critical role in keeping it fresh. But I think again there's a kind of circuit that develops between the performance and the composition. The performance influences the tunes, and the tunes influence the performances.
Yeah.
And I think in general, my favorite players are also writers.
Yeah.
Wayne Shorter, Thelonious Monk, whatever. The kind of line between playing and composing is kind of blurred too. I mean, you sense, for instance, when Wayne is playing, there is an element of deliberation in his playing that's the composer in him, appearing even while he's making stuff up before your eyes. Even when he's improvising, you understand that there's a process of composition going on, and I sense there's always in Carla's playing as well, and in Thelonious Monk's play. I mean, Monk would simply play the tune over and over with very slight but crucial variations in his approach to it, night after night. I loved listening to Monk refine his music in the subtlest and in the subtlest way, with the attention to the smallest of details. Improvising was going on, but you really had to look for it. It sounded as if he was just playing the tune over and over. At any rate, in the case of both the Scofield configurations, usually trio, and Carla's configurations, also usually trio, there's this kind of back and forth between the playing and the writing that pushes the music forward. In effect, Carla is responding to what she's heard in trio performances that interested her, that was different, that pointed toward something new. And she'd sit upstairs at the desk for hours and weeks and make something of that, make a tune that forced the trio to move from its present location to a location in a slightly different place. And then that would provoke different playing in us, and the changes in our playing would in turn send her back to the desk and change the next tune that she would write for us, and so on. There was this kind of one step after the other going on. Think of the left foot as the performance foot and the right foot as the foot. and they were forever moving forward. And the same thing happened with John's trios.
Yeah, definitely.
At some point, until just very recently, I was insistent um, that we play just his music. I felt strongly that the trio's identity was tied into what he wrote. I think
Yeah.
he's a really wonderful writer as
Oh yeah,
well.
amazing. Yeah.
And I think the same left-right kind of process was going on. He was taking lessons from our nightly performances, bringing them back to the desk and writing tunes, which in turn pushed the nightly performances in another direction. I say until very recently, because then he insisted on making an album of my tunes, and it was kind of over my dead body. I didn't want to do it. I really felt that the trio played his,
Yeah.
and that's what it should be. But he convinced me that we just take this one afternoon, just humor me, okay. We'll just go into the studio and just do this one thing. I promise that's it. Just do it. So I did, and I thought that would kind of be the end of it. But then Manfred Eicher liked it,
Yeah.
and released the music as an album. And of course, I'm glad. I'm
Yeah.
pleased and flattered that John chose to do this, because he is such a good writer himself and has no need to play other people's music. And not only has no need to, but his identity as a player is wrapped up in his identity as a writer, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So this meant kind of taking, and I suppose that's why he did it too. It meant kind of taking himself out of his very comfortable area and moving to a slightly different place for an afternoon,
Dr. Jazz.